Ready?
Ready.
Good? Okay. All right, we're back with the marathon match competitors and Harshit to drive. Go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, so good to see you guys competing back again. I mean, it's been long. It's been years. I've been seeing you on the leaderboard, and now I'm an admin. I'm here to see you guys. So it's amazing to see you guys come and compete. The first question I have for you guys is from Nicholas actually. She said she wanted to ask about the problem, and she says, "I know where you guys are staying, so make sure you speak good about the problem." so yeah, how did you find the problem?
Shall I start?
Yeah, you go for it.
So it was interesting, definitely. At the same time, it was simple but deep. Like I think based on what I did and what I heard from other people, like you had to do two different phases, and like they were obviously some. Sorry, I have problems with picking words in English. So there were some dependencies between the two phases, and it was not so easy to optimize the first phase and the second phase disjointly. So we need to do it both at the same time. And despite the fact that the logic itself is not very hard, there are many different parameters flying around, and many different variants of different methods used. Yeah, I think it was a good problem,
Okay.
even though I didn't do great.
We'll get to that in a second. Paul, what are your thoughts on the problem?
I mean, so I always do better at problems where there's some uncertainty.
Okay.
And there was no uncertainty or no hidden variables in this problem, so that naturally made it harder for me.
Well, while you're talking about it, let's go over to the leaderboard here. So this is with all tests are done in the full run, but the system tests are going to be kicked off now, I believe. And this is where we stand. So you guys are right in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, I think those are going to be reasonably robust.
Yeah, they won't move much, you think?
At the top, you see quite a lot of differences. So I'm not sure actually what's the variance between the first two, but like between the second and first place, the difference is huge. So I don't expect the top two should be easily separated from the rest. And between the first and second, yeah, it would be a surprise if tourist doesn't win.
Yeah. To be honest, like, unless someone's been locally optimizing by submitting and seeing how it does on the leaderboard, I kind of would be surprised if there were big changes.
It's pretty close this time. I mean, with the second, third, and fourth, I mean, it's pretty close. So
Yeah, I think 3, 4, and 5 could probably all.
Yeah, of course. 3, 4, and 5 are close, so this is fine.
So what was your approach? I mean, how did you, when you read the problem first, like, how did you approach the problem? Like,
It seems like everyone's tried to solve it in a similar way. It's just that the details are very different between people's implementations. So I think the first part of the solution is to say, how high a number can I reach on the board? Because the goal, like, you get significant benefits if you get deep into the board. But actually then, having got deep into the board, you then want to pick up score by deleting cells. But deleting cells conflicts with going deep into the board. So most people first try to go deep into the board and not delete as few cells as possible, and then they try to add back on deletion onto their initial path. So they have a very short path that gets them deep, and then they add deletion kind of moves. And it seems like most people did variants on some sort of search algorithm, maybe with backtracking, or maybe I guess the thing where you kind of keep track of your best 100 or 1,000 candidates and keep moving deeper. And I mean, Eldidu said that he also then got some decent benefits from recombining his regenerating solutions by taking prefixes of prior solutions that worked well. Which sounds
This is
complicated. Yeah.
This usually works when you have a sequence. Then usually you can spend 70% of the time computing everything from scratch, but then after some fixed amount, say 70%, you try to keep some prefixes that you have. best so far. Yeah, I mean I did that, but I didn't see like huge boost out of this. But I think that as Paul was saying, like you had in this problem statement, in the objective function, you had those two actually forces that were driving the score, but you needed to do two opposite things in order to score well on each of those. So this is
You have to find the cells,
well, you want to score
go deep. Yeah.
Yes, you want to go deep, and this is for in order to go deep, you don't want to damage the board, but in order to score high, actually on the scoring component, you need to damage the board because damaging the board is actually what brings you the score. So.
Right. How did you guys handle the wild card?
So this was again something that people handled more or less in the same, but also in a different way because there are many details here. Like what I did personally was that I was trying to penalize using wildcards early on and then make them use later. Like they were more valuable later. But of course it depends on the test.
Yeah, you think some might have like used wildcard in the beginning also? Some people, like some of the members?
Sure.
That feels very non-optimal.
Yes, but like usually when you have a problem with there are so many parameters involved, you just do many different simulations with many different parameter sets. So you just have some candidate values for the parameters, you set them, and those either will penalize using wildcards or any other thing early on or not, and then you just roll out many different times for many different parameter values, and then some of them will be good for the given test, you hope.
Oh yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Okay. Yes. So that's for today's match. But I just wanted to ask you. It's been like many marathon matches. So how would you rate this problem with all the marathon finals you have competed in? Like, if you had to rate. I will not show this to Nicholas.
Well, I think the first one I did was in 2007 at the last collegiate challenge, and that involved tanks, and there were like 3D graphics going on. So
was there some uncertainty, or at least partial information?
I can't even remember. I think there was some uncertainty, but there was almost like there was minimal value in trying to like actually learn things about it. But I got to go around shooting things, so that was fun.
That was one of your favorites one?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we had an interview with Nicholas recently, and she showed us the best visualizers she has seen on top quarter matches, and she had that tank one up there. So yeah, so we have two people vouching for that match. Yeah. What about you, Marek? Which TCO problem like you liked the most? TCO finals.
I think they are all good, but it's hard to pick. So I usually tend to pick the ones that like I have most fun working with. And this is usually where there is more complexity in the problem statement itself. Like when the problem statement is simple and then I usually don't do that well. So I probably do better when there is more, coding involved, and you need to somehow manage bigger structure of the logic.
Right.
And here there is not much logic. There is much more parameter tuning and handcrafting objective functions. But kind of, when you have just a few hours or 10 hours or 12 hours, depending on what's the length of the marathon match, I think the choice was, I think it's been the fourth time for me. So each of the four finals in marathon competition was good in my opinion. So.
That's good to hear that. Nicholas?
Good report.
Yeah, good to know that. And
just if I can throw one more sentence, I think it's easier to be picky about problems in the online routes when you have like 40 hours or even more, depending on how many people invest. But because then you can actually deeply understand what is going on in the problem statement, and here you know that you are not even able to implement everything you think of. So
right.
Yeah, I think that what needs to happen is that you need to have a problem that is you need to be able to implement a basic solution relatively quickly, so that it's not the case that after 5 hours people don't have a solution, and at the same time the problem needs to be deep enough so that you have interesting things going in the second half of the match as well.
That makes sense, yes. T-Mac was telling us that, once Top Quarter hosted a 24-hour marathon match, Were you guys a part of it?
I was there for the algorithm final, but I wasn't doing the marathon.
Yeah, and he cited two reasons. One of the reasons was like it went for too long, and the members were like some of them were sleeping, and some of them were like up, and some of them were like they left in 16 or 18 hours that I'm done already. I can't stand more here. And then the second one part was the admins had to be awake all night, so so we decided to scrap that. But do you think that would be interesting to bring it? It would be interesting to bring it back, like if you get
Yeah, I mean,
24 hours.
I've got a massive comparative advantage there because I have a very young child, so I'm very good at operating with no sleep.
James would agree to that.
Yep,
actually.
same thing. Same
Yeah.
exact thing, yep.
Yeah, so I think if we did
Warning
that,
to all development competitors. There are 15 minutes remaining in the development competition round.
Nick's not on camera, but he's still here with us, right?
Yeah, so that makes sense. So yeah, we'll discuss that, and probably if that makes sense, we
Yeah,
might
I
bring
think
those back.
I think
Yes.
12 hours or 10 hours is fine, but if you want to extend it, you can go up to 16, but I wouldn't go 24 hours.
Oh yeah, I mean, sometimes that is too long to sit at once. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Because then you risk that there will be half of the people, as you said, that who will know that they have more or less no chance after 16 hours,
Right,
and then
right. Yeah,
it's hard to be motivated when you're on the jackpot and
Yeah.
after 16 hours.
I think you could push through to midnight, right?
Yes, this is what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Right,
So
right,
going through
right.
to midnight is like somehow reasonable.
Reasonable,
and
yes.
No one has to do silly things.
Which gives you
overnight.
like 15 hours probably, right?
Yeah.
Or 16, and then
Right.
beyond that it will be hard.
How would you, Marek? You have been competing in Deadline 24. How would you compare the marathons, like the long competitions there and top photo marathon
So
competitions?
those 24-hour competitions are usually team-based, so you have a team. It also brings a bit different dynamic, but the biggest difference is actually that you gain points towards the ranking throughout the whole 24-hour period. It's not the case that you submit your final solution, which is then scored, which is the case here.
Okay.
You need to have a working solution throughout the 24 hours so that your solution competes against other team solutions and then scores some points throughout the way. Which also makes it tricky for the organizers because they need to make sure that you cannot gain super big advantage at the beginning of the contest so that the latest rounds still weigh as like a lot, so that it's not the case that halfway through the contest you know already who will win. But at the same time, you want to have the incentive for people to actually compete early on as well. So this brings some interesting dynamics to the leaderboard and the objective functions in the problem statement. Yeah, I kind of like the fact that you need to not only think of what you're going to implement in the next few hours, but also maintain a working solution.
Right.
This is also something that is not present here. Like here you can hide for 8 hours and work on something that you know you will only bring up after a few hours.
Right.
And in those 24-hour competitions with online scoring, you cannot do that.
Okay.
I mean, both are fun.
What a fun. Good to know that. Yes. Fine. Thanks guys for
Thank you very much.
being on the broadcast. Yep. And
Good luck.
we'll see you back, and we'll see you. I hope to see you guys tomorrow, looking at the algorithm screens, and you guys used to compete in algorithms long back. I think you guys made it to algorithm finals like 9 years or 10 years back.
Yeah, before I had children.
Same for me.
So yes, so hope to see you here tomorrow, and then hope to see you guys look at the algorithm problems and tell us about them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
very
much.
much. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.